Hey, welcome into the RazzBowl Wednesday, July 4th Eve podcast. We are about to discuss Razzball 6 strategies, and we are going to touch base with one of the former champions of the league. So without further ado, Derek, I turn it over to you for whatever neat stuff you've got for our first official podcast.
All right, thanks. Yeah, and welcome everyone. This is our first RazzBowl podcast, so we're looking forward to it. We've got a special guest with us today. You can see the picture. We've got the Razzball 3 champion. Matt, you want to introduce him?
Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, we have Robert Goldman coming in, the Razzball 3 champion. He's going to take part in this discussion today. So Derek Fabric, Derek_Fabric on the Twitter machine, Al08 on the Twitter machine. So Robert, welcome in. Let's talk about it.
Hi there.
Robert, how are you?
Hey, Robert.
Good. You?
I'm good. It's exciting to have you. We were going to have one of the other champions. Something came up with him, but we'll see if we can squeeze him onto a different show. But it's nice to have you. You told us a minute ago that you've only been playing fantasy football since 2015. Is that correct?
Yes. Seriously.
Yes. No. Well, I think we're all, if we're on a podcast, we're probably more than serious. We're probably, it's a little too much at this point for any of us.
Well, Robert's a quick learn. If he started in 2015 and he was already won a tournament like RazzBowl, in his third year, which would have been 3 years ago in 2021. So, Robert, he is a CPA, so he's obviously a sharp guy, and we're happy to have him in as our former champ.
Thank you.
Yeah, Derek, throw that T-shirt up, and while you're doing that, is anybody getting a reverb? Are you hearing us talk after we've talked?
No, I am not. Everything sounds good here.
Yep.
All right, good. So I'm the only one. I will try to fight through it. It's weird. I'm seeing you talk. I'm hearing it. And then there's a 2 or 3 second delay and I'm getting you again. So bear with me if I look odd for a moment. It's only because I'm hearing it twice. But before we get moving, let's talk about RazzBowl. We'll go through some of the rules, the setup and the scoring. And then Robert, we'll go back to you. We'll talk about what your feelings are about this tournament versus others. So as you know, weeks 1 through 10 is a classic best ball format. You draft your players, whatever players do for you during weeks 1 through 10, you get all those points. But you get them in the standard lineup, right? 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, no kicker, no defense. So again, draft the best players you can, hope for the best in weeks 1 through 10. When we hit round 1 of what we call the championship format, weeks 11 through 13, those scores are combined plus your weekly scoring average for weeks 1 through 10. After that, the top 30 scoring RazzBall championship bracket teams will advance to week 14. All other teams from the championship bracket move to the wild card bracket. The top 6 scoring wildcard teams move up to the championship bracket, and the next 40 advance in the wildcard bracket. All other teams in the wildcard bracket are eliminated. What we call round 2 is week 14, and we'll take each team's weekly scoring average from weeks 1 to 10, plus the weekly playoff scoring average of weeks 11 through 13, plus your week 14 scores. The top 20 scoring RazzBall teams advance. All other teams move to the wildcard bracket. The top 4 RazzBall wildcard teams move up to the championship bracket, while the next 20 advance in the wildcard bracket. All other teams, as we just talked about, are eliminated. So you want to stay out of the wildcard bracket if you can, but if that's all you can muster, then at least stay there and you've got a chance of advancing. Week 3 encompasses week 15. We take the same scoring format, average of weeks 1 to 10, plus the weekly scoring average of 11 through 14, plus your week 15 score. Top 14 scoring RazzBall championship bracket teams advance. All others move to wildcard bracket. top 2 scoring Razzball wildcard teams move up to the championship bracket, and the next 11 advance in the wildcard bracket. All other teams in the wildcard bracket are eliminated. Moving to round 4, week 16 of the NFL schedule. We take each team's weekly average from 1 to 10, plus all of the playoffs through week 15, and your score in week 16. Now, take a deep breath. Here we go. Top 9 scoring Razzball championship bracket teams advance. All others move to the wild card bracket. Top 1 scoring Razzball wildcard teams moves up to the championship bracket. The next 6 advance in the Razzball wildcard bracket. All other teams, as we've discussed, in the wildcard bracket are then eliminated. Final round, week 17. Each team's weekly scoring average from 1 through 10, plus all of the scoring average for 11 through 16, plus your week 17. 10 teams compete in the Razzball championship bracket for the overall title of 2024 Razzball 6 champion. The remaining wildcard teams compete in the Razzball wildcard bracket or the consolation bracket for the consolation championship. The only issue with that is in the past, we used to actually provide prizes to the consolation winner. That is no longer happening. The bosses and the powers to be have decided 2024 will be a winner-take-all tournament. So, Robert, I looked at some history and found that not only did you win Razzball 3, but last year, 2023's Razzball 5, you finished 8th in the consolation bracket.
Right.
So from the rules that we've talked about so far, with 6-point passing TD and a small fab, which we'll get into shortly, what is your feeling on how our scoring and our tournament setup is different from others that you've been associated with?
Well, the NFC has the cut line, this is very similar to, and I've been playing in the cut line for about 6-7 years, except the only difference between this tournament and that is that's 10 teams in each league, and this is 12, similar to Raz Slam. And so with the cut line, what is interesting is the fact that it's best ball for the first 10 weeks. It's partly a best ball, partly set your lineup. So starting week 11, we're setting our lineup. So it changes your whole feel as to how you have to draft a team. It's not pure best ball where you're just piling up the wide receivers per se. So that's where now you finished 9th last year overall, Matt.
I did.
Now, when I won, my biggest advantage was I was by far the top scoring team through those first 10 weeks. So I had a huge lead going into the playoffs.
You absolutely need a lead, and you need that weekly average to be very high. And then you hope for the best, right? Well, 11 through 17, you're really hoping that a player doesn't take a game off, or that you don't get a guy that's sits for the real NFL playoffs. In fact, I finished 9th. I probably was trending to finish in the top 3. However, my running backs all got dinged or were sitting, and one of my running backs ended up to be Samaje Perine in the championship bracket. Right in the final week, I had a guy that scored maybe 5 touches.
Right.
Though his per touch rate was pretty good throughout the season, he was not the guy that you wanted to ride into the playoffs and try to win the league. So I fell down to 9th, but overall, I'll take it. It was a great finish for me.
Well, I tell you, I feel inadequate here because I got knocked down after the 3rd round. I made the tournament, but I got knocked out after the 3rd round. And so Matt making the final and Robert being in the final in the consolation bracket, I feel a little inadequate here, but I'll try to manage.
Yes. So, Robert, what is your going in? Usually you're not going to know the people you're drafting with, right? Sometimes you've got what you would call pros or analysts or writers. And then you have Joes. You have people like you that are just in it to have fun, and they don't do it for a living. Or by the way, we don't do it for a living either, but we do. So what is your strategy running into a tournament where you don't know any of the other people? Like with a home league, if you go to a bar or a restaurant or somebody's living room, you kind of get a feel, who these people are. But what do you do when you go into a draft with strange rules that you're comfortable with now, but that are clearly people you don't know, so you don't have any draft info on them going forward.
Well, like last year, actually, I drafted with Bobby Lamarca.
Oh, really?
So he was in my division, and so we were talking back and forth, and after, I think you just have to be confident in what you're doing. I've gotten a few of my friends to try and get into this, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's July. How am I supposed to know who to draft yet? A lot of people home leagues, they're not drafting until last week in August, first week in September. But those of us that are a little bit more serious already have our rankings. Matt, you and Derek both have your rankings up on RazzBowl. I'll disagree with some of those, but that's that's an aside.
This came in the mail last week, right? For us old tactile learners, we love this. It's something I carry with me, and as Derek knows, we're old buddies. I'm going on a cruise here, and we leave Saturday for it. So that magazine will be with me the entire time. Will I gain anything out of it? I don't know, because when they put Tatum Bell on the cover and I drafted Tatum Bell, let's just say I didn't have a really good season. So it's actually a running joke with that magazine how bad the Tatum Bell cover ended up.
Well, just make sure you slip that magazine into like a Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition or something. So when people are, looking at you by the pool, they realize that, you're reading cruise appropriate material.
Yeah. Well, and remember, I have my RazzBowl Speedo, so people are drawn to that on the pool deck, and
your 16 T-shirts, right?
Yeah. Let's not talk about the Speedo.
Yes. Speaking of T-shirts, Robert, when you won, not only did you get that beautiful trophy I see over your left shoulder, but you got a couple T-shirts from the group.
Yeah.
Look, he's going to show off.
Here's the trophy. All right. Nice. Engraved and everything. I was shocked.
Wonderful.
And then of course they sent 6 of the different RazzBowl shirts. And then, fortunately, all right, the year I won, I'd already previously bought the shirt. So the one you showed earlier, I have, and then the next year's shirt, and I'm looking forward to this year's shirt.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to tell everyone, Matt, a little bit about what's coming? I mean, don't break the news yet, but tell them about what you've been working on.
Yeah. So we have the RazzBowl 6 logo designed thanks to Cool Whip and approved by Gray. We have now turned it over to the good folks at RotoWare, and once we have the design completely done, we know that they are ready to print it on T-shirts. We're going to, it'll probably be online with a discount code. So keep following RazzBowl, and folks that are playing in RazzBowl, there'll be maybe a short-term discount code. And then the shirt will be obviously available at RotoWare, just as all of the T-shirts are. So there'll be a one-time only short period that you can get the discount. After that, it's going to be probably retired in the Fantasy Football Hall of Fame somewhere. I think that's in Canton. I don't know that for sure, but there probably is one someplace, and I probably should know that.
Yeah. So talking a little more strategy, and we'll get back to kind of the beginning and talk about the draft. So Robert, tell us about your approach, because NFBC uses the Kentucky Derby style, draft prioritization. And do you have a preferred, draft position that you look for? I mean, how do you set your KDSs, or even do you? And you just take the luck of the draw? What's your approach to that?
Well, with this tournament, since it's not third round reversal, I just think the value of having the earlier picks is better. It's that simple. If you were doing third round reversal, I'd probably want to be in the middle. So like with Scott Fishbowl, I chose 6 because that way I could be in the middle of the round and not lose out on any runs.
Yeah. Ironically for Scott Fishbowl, I did the same thing. I chose the 6th spot.
Right. Yeah. Right. So from that, and the main reason there is because that third round reversal.
Yeah.
Because that third round to the fourth, and you want to be where you want to be. It depends a lot of it. Like when we did this mock draft the other night, I always figure you want to be somewhere. It doesn't matter where you are, as long as you know where you think you want to go. But as we know, all your plans get changed.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So when you say, wanting to know where to go, are you talking about in the early rounds, or are you talking maybe more, first top 10 rounds, or even, do you even look when you're thinking about your draft spot, do you even look towards the later rounds?
I typically look top 6 rounds.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
Okay.
And my strategy last year going into 2023 is I had been writing the wide receiver side, and that's what I'm doing for 2024. And I felt I had an advantage of knowing more about wide receivers that were going to pop versus running. Now, with that, I had names like Puka Nacua and Nico Collins. And, I mean, with those types of names, you're going to do very well. And I had a lot of them on the bench for the best ball portion of the tournament, weeks 1 through 10. The issue is that I probably waited one round too many drafting receivers, and when I should have picked up a running back that was going to give me a little bit more in the end. But I'm like you, right? I am going wide receiver heavy. I think they do extremely well in best ball formats, and they tend to not the pounding that running backs do. So I will do running backs and go wide receiver heavy as much as possible.
Yeah, the one thing is that, particularly in this tournament, because after week 10, you can't pick up anybody. With the running backs, you just got to make sure you have the depth.
Yeah.
That's what you suffered from last year. And I had the same thing even the year I won. I was down to where I had only so many players that were healthy. And that was one of the keys.
Yeah, so you mentioned it. You brought up a really good point with the fact that after week 10, there's no fab, right? We cut it off. You get it 1 week before the season starts all the way through week 10. And our fab is different than a lot of fabs. It's not $1,000. It's not $100. It's a flat $10 budget. There are no $0 bids. And you need to use that money smartly between week, minus 1 week, or what's the right terminology? 0 week plus weeks 0. 1 through 10.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're probably not going to make it very far. I will tell you that some feedback we received from folks over the weekend when we did the mock, and historically was folks that advanced use their fab wisely. Folks that don't use their fab do not usually make it through this tournament. And by the way, it's every week. It's at the same time.
Yep.
And the only thing is no $0 bids. You can bid $9 on Jacoby Myers if you want. You can bid $1 on Baker Mayfield if you want. But you have to bid at least $1. And by the way, when you have spent your $10, you're done. There are no $0 bids allowed. You cannot even scoop somebody up at the end. And there's no waiver wire. It's either fab or nothing.
Right.
Well, and like Robert said, it's so important to have a good score in those first 10 weeks. So it doesn't necessarily pay to hold on to fab too long. To some degree, you want to save some for, those week 7, week 8 injuries or whatever. But, you need to have a nice base of points through those best ball weeks. And that means if you've got to pay a little bit more in the early weeks to get your guy, you need to do that. But on the same token, you want to save a little bit, towards 8, 9, and 10, just in case you need to shore up your roster before the play or the portion.
So Robert, does anybody fab worthy stand out to you from the year you won or from last year when you still finished very high?
Well, my fab strategy typically has been that, like the year I won, what happened was I waited a long time on tight end. And I ended up then once the first week went by, I saw who was actually scoring from a tight end perspective, and I ended up putting 4 tight ends on my team, and I regularly had I was regularly starting 3 tight ends, Dawson Knox, and give me a second, and Evan Ingram. Mm-hmm. So in other words, they were not high draft picks, but I ended up using them, Goddard, Schultz, and those were and 3 of those guys were pickups in the early weeks. So like you were talking about, Derek, you want to score optimally, and a tight end will score just as much as a wide receiver.
And there is no taking fab forward, right? You spend it or you lose it. So at the end of week 10, if you've got $10 in the bank, RazzBowl does not write you a check for $10. And by the way, the tournament that you're in, it's free. So it's not like we have $10 to write you, right? We have the same issues that everybody else does with money these days. So there is no $10. There are no $10 checks coming out to anybody. So
although we do have a CPA as a former champ, so maybe we can rethink this money management side, and Greg can invest and pay everyone for their unused fab. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll have to get that. We'll do that offline. We won't bore anybody.
Yeah, set up as a 501c3 or something.
Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking.
Right. So we're just over 20 minutes in. We are going to get into some other stuff, but if you guys are open to it, I'd like to bring up the RazzBowl mock draft that we did Saturday morning. In fact, all 3 of us were on, and if you look squarely right in the middle, we just kind of preached being in the middle, and you will see Derek drafted at 7. I drafted
at 6.
Robert at 7, and I drafted at 8. Now, I did that for a couple of reasons. 1, I like to be in the middle. 2, I was kind of putting myself in the same spot I am for Scott Fishbowl and see what the differences were. And I will tell you that there are times when I look at my roster and I love it, and there are times when I look at it and I don't like it at all. I heard some fantasy talk on SiriusXM a couple of days ago that these guys were passing on Kamara completely and entirely and would never want to have anything to do with him because he's not happy with his contract. I look at the value and think if I would have just taken CJ Stroud or Joe Burrow there, I mean, I haven't slept in days knowing that they went right after me, but I made up for that with my quarterback choice later. We can talk about that when it comes around. But let's for now, Robert, why did you choose to be in between Derek and I? Is it just because you wanted to be in the middle and that's where it ended up? Or did you have some other strategy going into that pick?
Well, I'm of the belief that there's an easy top 8 in any of these, any draft, okay? I think it falls off after Bijan Robinson, as far as the first round goes. And then I think it becomes, everybody pick their own adventure, so to speak. But, I wanted to, as far as I'm concerned, as long as I'm in the top 8, I'm happy. All right. That's kind of the way I look at it. And I didn't want to pick the same as I'm doing for Scott Fishbowl. So that's why I didn't want 6. And that was perfect. So, Derek did that.
So did you know when you picked 7 did you know that Matt and I were on either end of you, or did it just happen to be that way?
I saw Matt chose 8, and so it was fine.
Okay, good.
Didn't matter.
So let me just jump right in then, because one of the topics that we talked about during the live draft was my first round pick and then subsequently your first round pick. And so the guys were really, I won't say shocked, but they were a little surprised that I went with Amon-Ra St. Brown at 6 before Jefferson, and then you came right after me and picked Jefferson. Were you thinking Jefferson might fall to you at 7? Were you expecting him, like me, to take him before, or what were your thoughts on that sequence in the first round?
They're basically both going together. if you look at any of the ADPs, if you look at anything out there, the rankings, whoever's rankings they are, those guys are together. It's, do you believe in the quarterback play in Minnesota, or do you prefer Jared Goff? Do you believe in, as far as I'm concerned, I think there's a little more competition for targets with Addison on Minnesota, but it's 6 of one, half dozen the other to me.
Okay.
Between those guys. And that's why I said the same thing even with Bijan Robinson. Just a matter of, do you want the running back or the wide receiver?
Yeah, and
where I took Bijan after you, do you see the next receiver off the board is AJ Brown? Do you see Brown as being the better selection, or Bijan, as you mentioned about your top 8?
Yeah, Bijan is in my top 8. Yep.
Which is exactly how I want to go as well. And I will. So here's a question that goes to strategy as well. Not necessarily what we're looking at here, but in general. Do you, since you started playing, we'll call it 9-10 years ago, you've been playing seriously, have you ever found yourself falling in love with a player before the draft where you almost feel like you overpay for that player if he's available and he won't make it back to you? To me, 2024, this draft, if I have any opportunity to draft Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm going to take it. That scares me because I know myself well enough to know that there might be a chance where I take him too high. But I see him as having a potential to be wide receiver 1 and possibly player 1 in 2024. Do you ever see yourself falling into that problem?
Yeah, last year I was that way with Cooper Kupp. And, but I'm an agnostic kind of drafter. I want the value. But literally my biggest mistake in the RazzBowl last year was taking Kupp in the first round instead of McCaffrey. Simple. Because I've got this, I knew with everybody else on LA, and I thought that they said that Kupp was doing fine. And
I'm looking at the history here. Where did you take Kupp? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it was pick 3, 2 or 3.
And I took him at 4.
Right.
Well, you're probably not the only one that that's kicking yourself a little bit for taking Kupp over McCaffrey, as it turned out. But it is what it is.
See, and then the other question I have for you gentlemen. So, in where you think that there's, say, 3 or maybe as many as 5 running backs in that first round, do you find that it's a little bit easier grabbing a running back there and then switching over to wide receivers? Or
in this draft, I see 3 running backs need to go in the first round.
Right.
McCaffrey, Breece Hall, and Bijan. After that, I was happy to see, not happy, but I was okay with Gibbs and especially Jonathan Taylor going after me, which meant that the wide receivers that I tend to covet were going to come back to me. And we knew in this draft, right, there was going to be a mistake. Now, there's always mistakes that are made, at least in my opinion. I believe Barkley went too early. I believe Jonathan Taylor went too early. I believe Kelsey went too early. I was ecstatic to see Davante Adams come back in round 2. Now, I'm an admitted Packers lover, so Davante, I still have a soft spot for him. But I think Davante, Olave, London in that order is absolutely fantastic value for those 3 players, especially knowing that Kelsey went before them and Laporta went right after them. Well, Etienne and Laporta went right after them. I have no issues with those 3 players right where they are. I don't foresee Adams and Olave being there. I think London might be there in every draft.
Yeah, I can tell you at the second coming back. I mean, we talked about it again on the mock. I'm a proponent of going in a draft like this, going with two or even 3 wide receivers. So your approach, Robert, of taking 4, really, goes right to my heart. I really like the way that you started. And unfortunately, I was targeting Olave there. And as it was coming back to me, I was thinking, if I could start with St. Brown and Olave in 1-2, I mean, that would just really solidify, my whole squad. I mean, I'm fine with London. In fact, I'm even a little higher on him this year now that they've got a real, quarterback who knows how to distribute the ball. But I was really targeting Olave there, and when he fell off the board right in front of me, again, it's just a mock, but I wasn't happy. Just put it that way.
So we had Robert go wide receiver 4 in a row. We also had Austin, who I think picked 103. Is that right?
3.
Yep.
Yeah, there's Austin
So,
there. Yeah.
So Robert, looking, obviously you're going to pick sooner than Austin did in 2 of the rounds, and after him in 2.
That's right.
Looking back, would you, for $1, swap your receivers for his?
No.
Okay.
No, I thought Pittman and Metcalf were tremendous values where I got them.
I agree. 100%.
So what if I allow you to take the first 4, you swap them, you give him Ingram, and he gives you Kittle?
No, I have Ingram ranked ahead of Kittle in my rankings.
As do I. I think what you've done in this draft with the first 4, and I will tell you the first 5, but I don't want to give you any credit on the 5th pick. Excuse me, the 6th pick, because it still stings. I think that you have the RazzBowl 6 formula to a T. I think that's exactly what I if I can come out of the 6 rounds looking just like you, I will take it every day and twice on Sunday. Now, do I love Najee? No, but I think it's perfect value in the 7th. Do I love Rashee Rice? No, but I think it's your wide receiver 5. Give me a break. Insane.
Don't forget,
Javonte scares me.
Flexes.
Yes. Yeah. 3 flexes, 3 receivers. Yep. So I think I don't love Javonte, but if he comes out and is the starter, there's a lot of people that are kind of already taking him back, like old Yeller, right? They're already taking him to the woodshed. I don't think he's going to lose his job. I don't think Jaleel McLaughlin is good enough to win that job. He may have it at the end, but I think Javonte weeks 1 through 10 is going to give you what you need. And I think you round it out nicely with running backs. But your top 6 is absolutely off the charts.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I like my squad the way it rounded out, but I definitely like how you built yours just a little bit better.
And you ended up with Diggs as an auto, right? And that worked out for you.
Yeah, and that's fine. As my wide receiver 3, I mean, there's a lot of mouths to feed there in Houston, but he certainly can be. I mean, I don't think he's a number 1 anymore, especially with that wide receiver room there in Houston. But I mean, he's certainly, as a wide receiver 3, I think he's going to be solid. So I was fine with that one.
Yeah, and knowing that Robert had Ingram higher, knowing that Ingram was going to go there, I would have taken Diggs over Aaron Jones. So he wasn't going to make it 3 picks past you. I don't want Diggs, but I think the value there is excellent. So.
Yeah, I agree. I would have preferred as my wide receiver 4, but in a perfect world. But no, right there, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So now I will say this. So for a strategy for me, and I know we don't want to give away too many secrets, but it's a free tournament. All of our stuff is in front of the paywall anyway. For me, I think it's a must that you come away with 3 week 1 starting quarterbacks and 3 week 1 starting tight ends. Now, if you need to use Fab to massage that a little bit, that's okay. But if you don't come away with that, you could be in a world of hurt, in my opinion.
Well, now, that's an interesting thought because, like Robert said, he used his Fab last year to build up his tight ends. And so, which means, I'm not looking at your draft from last year, or the previous year,
right?
But you would have certainly loaded up on those other skilled positions rather than, like Matt's thought of having 3 starting tight ends. You may have had 1 or 2, and then you built, you strengthened that through Fab.
Yeah, and I think anybody associated with Scott Fishbowl has a predetermined tight end soft spot, and I believe, because some of the people that were invited into this, we've met through the Scott Fishbowl world. Obviously, we're a much different tournament. We're not super flex. We don't have tight end premium. We don't give points for first downs, et cetera, et cetera. I still am a proponent of get a good tight end if they're in the right spot, which is exactly, Robert, your back's going to hurt. I'm patting it so much here. But the Evan Ingram is a perfect spot for Evan Ingram. Kyle Pitts, very good spot for Kyle Pitts. But some people paid up for tight ends when all they are is a one position, one start player. And I think there was more value on the boards. I like to get a couple guys a little bit later. You'll see that I ended up with Goddard later. I would love Goddard as a tight end too, but he's going to be the tight end one for this mock. But I think that tight end was overvalued in this draft, and it allowed people like the three of us to get those skill position guys and load up on them easier.
All right, so Robert, we're going to put you on the spot here. So, in this mock draft, obviously we're pretty confident in you like your team. So, again, Matt, I drafted in the spot before. Matt drafted in the spot after. So you're going to settle a bet for us. Not your team, but do you prefer my squad or do you prefer Matt's squad in this mock draft? And I have the first 11 rounds showing, so I don't need to go too much deeper than that, but just for the first 11 rounds, which of the two do you prefer? And there's only one right answer. So
yeah.
But.
And Robert, I was the one that reached out, got you back into the tournament. I'm the one that has been lauding your draft. I mean, what I don't want you to do is let that affect your decision here, but I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to listen to what you had to say.
Well, I've got to say they're fairly close. I really like all of our third round picks, and the Aaron Jones pick. I thought that was really smart. That's your Green Bay tendencies there.
Correct.
The one thing I'll say is, I think that Jaden Daniels, particularly in this tournament, to get him in the 10th round was really, really good, Derek. Because I think there's a top 10. I don't see a big Jordan Love. I don't think there's a big difference between Joe Burrow and Jordan Love. My opinion. But that in this room, you're
not going to hurt Derek's feelings.
They're both very good teams. It's quite. You know what? I think from a consistency perspective, I think I like Derek's team a little bit better.
Oh, I can't. So, Robert, it was nice. It was nice having you on, Derek. If we'll just go ahead and wrap this thing up, and
you would have taken Amon-Ra St. Brown ahead of Bijan Robinson too.
Yeah, yes, you're right. He would have. So, but no, it actually, all kidding aside, you bring up Jaden Daniels, and let me just ask you your thoughts. Between him and Caleb Williams, there's a lot of people who I think there's strong opinions both ways. Which of the two rookie quarterbacks there, would you prefer to have in a redraft this year? And do I take it from your comment that they both went in the same round, in round 10 in this mock? Would you take Daniels over Williams or?
Yes, I have him ranked higher.
Yeah,
in my rankings, I have him ranked higher.
I do as well.
Yeah,
particularly because of the running ability.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a if you look historically, these quarterbacks when they're young and then they have the ability to run, that really, he could even get 500 yards, 5 touchdowns running. Caleb Williams could do it as well, but I think he's going to be more of a structure. Whereas Jaden Daniels, I can see him not being like Anthony Richardson light, literally and figuratively, because he is that much lighter. But I think he's going to be a lot more accurate as a quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you look at what he did at LSU, he's threw the ball around a lot.
Now, there's 3 quarterbacks that you can see taken in that round.
Right.
Given your druthers, would you rather have Trevor Lawrence than either one of the rookies? Or
no, I'd rather have Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels, okay. And of those 3, where do you have them ranked? Daniels, and then who's your 2 if you have to draft them in order?
Right now I have Daniels, Williams, Lawrence.
Wow.
Yeah, because I just don't think that Jacksonville throws the ball that much. And if you look at last
Evan Ingram, you better hope they do. 114 targets don't grow on trees, right?
He's a lot of it is short to Ingram. Yeah. A lot of it is short to Kirk. Sometimes he'll get down the field, but you're taking Ridley out of that offense and putting in Brian Thomas Jr. I think they're going to be, and if you look, their pace of play really means that there's that many fewer plays going on in Jacksonville, and their defense is very good. So therefore, they play a slower paced game.
Yep.
And that's why, because last year I was a big proponent of Trevor Lawrence, and obviously that didn't work out very well. For anybody that drafted him is thinking he was a top 6 or 7 quarterback.
They remind me of the team that always scores 18 points. I think the Bears have so much on offense, and they're in a division where they're going to have to score a lot of points. As a admitted and proud Bear hater, I will not roster Caleb Williams, and will try to steer away from the others. But back to Derek, I love the fact that he's got DeAndre Swift in this draft as well. I mean, right in the middle of his draft is a guy that people are just ignoring, and I don't know why. He can come and play. I would even switch him out with the Alvin Kamara choice, right? Give me CJ Stroud there, and maybe Swift makes it back to me. I would have been just as happy with that build as well. But you're not going to get too much Bear hate from me. Now, Robert, on Sundays, when you log in and dial into our Sunday Start Sit show, we expect to see you there. You will hear all of the vitriol that comes with hating the Bears all day. But I don't have to talk about Justin Fields anymore, which is a good thing. So being the number one Never Fields guy, you don't have to listen to that anymore. But we will get questions about the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation, no doubt. But we're going to pivot. So we have our final segment, the fun part of this. I warned you ahead of time, so hopefully you've got your names ready to go. And Derek, I know you do, and I will wrap it up at the end. But Robert, over the time that you've played, so 2015, or even if you want to go back to when you weren't super serious about this, who are the 4 players that are on your fantasy football Mount Rushmore?
Tyreek Hill, Mahomes, Najee Harris, because he won me the championship. Literally on that Monday night game, Najee had a 70-yard touchdown run in the last 5 minutes of the game, and that gave me the RazzBowl 3 championship. And that's how I won it. Before that, I was behind. Nick Heffley, who still to this day complains about that. And then probably trying to think. I'd say Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, that's a nice list.
All newish names, right? But all good names as well. And Tyreek Hill, I mean, how do you go wrong? I read a stat the other day. So somebody was arguing drafting Justin Jefferson or Tyreek Hill, and the analyst that was talking said, well, you've got one guy that's never hit 1,455 yards, and you've got a guy that has back-to-back 1,700-yard seasons with oodles of touchdowns, plus he can run reverses. He goes, it's not even a discussion for me. So I had no idea that he had done it 2 years in a row, right? All I remember is Derek and I have a team that we split. We had a great team going into week 1, and our season was absolutely thrown out the window because we played against Tyreek Hill in week 1 of 2023.
Yeah.
And he went for what, 210-2? This is ridiculous. And at that point, we knew, well, we're done. We're not even going to win a game. Brutal. All right, Derek, you're 4, and I know yours are going to be relatively new as well. You haven't been. You're more of the.
Actually, I'm going back in the history books for me, and I even have an honorable mention. I'll bring it up. So, my first one, all these guys won me a championship on one of my teams somewhere. So, first one, I'm going to go back to Drew Brees, 2011. I mean, he had a couple years where he just dominated passing, but 2011, he had almost 5,500 yards passing and 46 touchdowns. I won a championship with him that year. So Drew Brees is on there. Randy Moss, his first year in New England, which was 2007. He had those years out in Minnesota, but his first year in New England, he had 23 touchdowns, only 98 receptions, and turned it into 23 touchdowns. That was just insane. So he's on the list for me. Here's going way back. Sean Alexander.
Sure.
2005. 1,800, almost 1,900 yards and 27 touchdowns for him too. I had him. I remember the year, and I didn't really know him that well, but he was that running back that just seemed to fall to me all the time in my drafts. And I had a great year that year, of course. So I got to put him on there. And the last one, another running back, Chris Johnson. Remember him, Tennessee, 2009.
Track star.
Yeah, 2,000 yards, 500 yards reception, and 16 touchdowns. He won me a title as well. And then my honorable mention, I think it was.
By the way, we didn't authorize Robert one, but we'll give him one after this.
Okay, so yeah, my honorable mention. I think it was either my first or second year doing fantasy football, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just picked the players that from the team that I like, and I was a Rams fan. Jim Everett. 1989, he was first in passing touchdowns, second in passing yards, and third in yards per game. Jim Everett was my quarterback, and I don't remember if I actually won a title that year, but I did pretty good. And from there, I was hooked. So yeah, Jim Everett is my honorable mention, 1989.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you my honorable mention since it's legal now, right off the bat. We had a league many years ago before when your commissioner had to go to USA Today or the Chosen Upon newspaper to get the scores. And Deion Sanders was actually playing a kick and punt returner. He was playing receiver for a couple of snaps, and he was playing defensive back, which is where he went to the Hall of Fame. We got angry at as a buddy of mine and I were splitting a team, and we got angry at the guy we were playing. He was talking all kinds of garbage, in the office because you couldn't do it online. He had to actually be tough enough to do it in person. And we told him our team was so much better that we were going to start Deion Sanders against him in the wide receiver position. We benched Tim Brown, and Deion Sanders returned a punt on national TV because you only got the games that were on national TV at that point, and we just blew the doors off the guy. So that's my honorable mention. Nobody ever had Deion. That was way before IDP was a thing. So for me, right, Derek, I have to go to my trusty book. This is where I usually write the notes when you guys have said something that's
that you want to bring up for later. Yes.
Yeah, I say that. And if you look, right, there is just pages and pages of notes of how you guys have acted towards me over the years. Number one for me is a repeat of yours, Randy Moss, but Randy Moss in general, because he's my favorite non-Green Bay Packer player of all time. He just killed us, but he killed Dallas. I love everything about Randy Moss. Second to that is Barry Sanders, who, if you watched him play back in the day, Barry Sanders was an absolute cheat code in fantasy football. He was on cover of not only the magazines, but he was on cover of the Fantasy Football Index when it was a book. And I believe it was 1992. He was on the cover of the book. I've had trouble actually going back and finding the book online. So he is my running back, Jerry Rice, but Jerry Rice is not one of my names. So I've got Randy Moss, Barry Sanders, Devontae Adams have loved him for years. Just go look at his stat lines over the years, and he's been absolutely fantastic. Even when Rodgers was being a baby, and even when Devontae wanted to be traded, wanted out, his numbers were still fantastic. He seems old, but he never runs old. He catches everything thrown at him. And as a Green Bay Packers guy, he's my guy. And my favorite, a guy that will probably never make the Hall of Fame. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. He won the Triple Crown for wide receivers. And my favorite player in the history of the league is Sterling Sharp. And we were able to pull off a trade in that league where we did a three-way trade, which you never hear of happening. One guy dealt Tim Brown. I dealt two of the receivers from the Houston Oilers when they were run and gun, run and shoot. And I ended up with Sterling Sharp on his Triple Crown year. So one that I will never forget, and he is my Mount Rushmore, even if I only had to have one, was Sterling Sharp. And if it wasn't for the neck injuries, he would have been a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. So with that, Robert, what is your one player as your what's
honorable mention?
So if you have one, great. If not, it's Derek's fault.
So over the years, Lamar Jackson, I've drafted him his rookie year. I've been drafting him every year. Drafted him Scott Fish last year. Lamar Jackson is but to me, that's an easy one because, when you can get someone like him, like Derek, you got Jaden Daniels late, in like the 12th or 13th round. That's why I brought up Mahomes. because I picked him in 2018 in the 12th round, and that led to a championship because that was the year he came out and was awesome. So yeah, so Lamar Jackson's here.
Yeah, when he's on, he's a cheat code as well.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson is. All right, Robert, thank you very much. You have made the night. It feels like a Friday, even though it's not a Friday. Derek, my co-host, thank you very much, buddy. It's always good to see you. And from all of us over here at RazzBowl 6, signups are online. They're free. If you don't know the info, come find us over at RazzBowl.com, Razzball or football.razzball.com as well. All of our articles are up, rating all of the players by position. Again, all free in front of the pay window. We do have some pay services, but you'll have to dig pretty deep to find those. And if you have any questions, hit us up on the Twitter machine. And we very much appreciate you coming in. Robert, thank you again. Best of luck. I know congratulations to you and your wife, and you're going on a big fancy dinner tonight. So enjoy your time, and thank you very much for tuning in with us today.
Yep. Just to reiterate, folks, if you want this year's version of this T-shirt, which Robert won, join online. Like Matt said, go to our website, find him on Twitter, and he's got the link in the article to do so. And we look forward to playing against you all. So, thank you from me as well, Robert. It was great talking with you. Great mocking with you last week, and I'm sure we're going to do it again before it's done. So, great. Thanks for coming on today, and enjoy the holiday tomorrow.
Thank you. You too.
All right. We'll see you. Wrap it up, Derek. Here we go.